What is going on, everyone? Welcome into Big Time Football Talk. So I wanted to do a mock draft of what I think the teams will do. I know there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of mock drafts out there of what everyone would do, but I wanted to do one what I think the teams will do. Starting with the Carolina Panthers at number 1, I have them taking Bryce Young. If the Vegas odds are really turning in favor of Bryce Young going number 1 to Carolina, I think it makes a lot of sense. Bryce Young, by most people, and myself included, is the best quarterback in this draft. Carolina, David Tepper made this aggressive move to move up and get a star quarterback, which, well, we think anyways. So we have them taking Bryce Young, the consensus by most, I would say, number 1 quarterback, arguably number 1 player in this draft. Number 2, Houston Texans. There's a lot of buzz around with the Houston Texans that they might take Will Anderson, and that's the pick here. Will Anderson, the edge rusher out of Alabama. Will Anderson, this is a guy that plays with relentless effort, massive season at Alabama the last couple of years, and including the 2021 season where he recorded 31 tackles for loss. Number 3, the Arizona Cardinals, taking Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech. Love Tyree Wilson. Love what this dude's all about. Length, power, ability to, really track down ball carriers with his speed, convert speed to power. Arizona, this is a team that needs defensive help badly, and they get themselves a stud with Tyree Wilson. They do not trade out of this pick. Number 4, Indianapolis, the Colts. Rumors that they might not take a quarterback, but one falls right in their lap here, and that's C.J. Stroud out of Ohio State. C.J. Stroud, some people may prefer him to Bryce Young. He does have, ideal size at, 6'2", was he 6'2", 6'3", 215, somewhere in that range. Looks the part, accurate, pinpoint accuracy, can make plays outside of the pocket, which he showed off in the Georgia game, does move well in the pocket. And, I think there was times that he did make plays, outside of structure other than that Georgia game. So, C.J. Stroud, not a great athlete, but a good athlete, and a good decision maker. Nice career, short career at Ohio State, but a good one nonetheless. Number 5, we have Seattle taking Jalen Carter, the defensive lineman out of Georgia. Seattle brought in Draymond Jones in free agency. This is a team that could definitely use some more interior help to go with Jaron Reed. They had Jordan Brooks at linebacker. Seattle, though, seems like a defense that just, begging for some star-studded players. So they get Jalen Carter here, like this pick. You got to love the upside of Jalen Carter, despite what he does off the field. So Seattle gets themselves a nice interior player in Jalen Carter out of the University of Georgia. Number 6, that we got the Lions taking Devin Witherspoon, a corner out of Illinois. Witherspoon just plays like a guy that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes would love. It's all about, elite ability in off-man coverage, a tenacious tackler, a guy that's just been a staple on the Illinois defense, and a guy that's just gotten better and better in college and has worked himself into arguably the best corner in this draft. Number 7, the Las Vegas Raiders. So the Raiders are interesting because there's, many different ways the Raiders could go here. I even kind of thought about offensive line, and there's not really a lot of hype around the Raiders taking offensive line. I saw one where they had them taking Paris Johnson, but I think in this case, Anthony Richardson falls to them. You got to love the upside of Anthony Richardson and an offensive line that has shown the ability to, be good enough in pass protection. This is a team that can run the ball effectively and get into a rhythm. You like Richardson's ability in play action, ability to make plays with his legs in Las Vegas with him, Josh Jacobs in the backfield. That's will really put a true dual threat, put a lot of pressure on opposing defenses. And this is, a team that really has pretty solid wide receivers. Hunter Renfrow, Devontae Adams. They do bring back Keelan Cole. So Las Vegas, with Anthony Richardson, it would be interesting with the already existing talent they have around him. Number 8, Atlanta. Atlanta here. I have them taking Luke Van Ness from Iowa. So they've recently signed Calais Campbell. I think this makes a lot of sense. That helps validate this pick, in my opinion. Luke Van Ness, a guy that can learn a lot from Calais Campbell. They also got Bud Dupree traded and then traded for Jeff Okudah. So Atlanta's making moves here. You add Luke Van Ness to this defensive line, really a defensive line that is just, it seems like every year they've gotten worse and worse, and they still have Grady Jarrett. You add Luke Van Ness, a guy that's all about power, strength, legitimate strength as well. So really like this pick, getting Luke Van Ness from Iowa. And just if you're Atlanta, continue to bolster the trenches, continue to, just try to slowly keep improving the roster. Number 9, I have the Chicago Bears taking Darnell Wright, offensive tackle out of Tennessee. Darnell Wright's a beast. This is a guy that, pass protection, is very good, a guy that can play right tackle, be a nice complement to the left side where they recently signed Orlando Brown. So, Chicago taking Darnell Wright. I really like this pick for the Chicago Bears. And to really try to continue to boost this offensive line, nice pick there. Philadelphia, I have the Eagles taking Jackson Smith-Njigba. Smith-Njigba, arguably is the best receiver in this draft. Really like his game a lot. It seems like it's him and Zay Flowers are, the big topic of discussion for who's going to be the first receiver off the board here. And they get them a nice player that really creates no excuses for this offense. Now, this is an offense that is going to be extremely dangerous next year with the addition of Jackson Smith-Njigba. So I'll go 11 through 20, and then I'll briefly go through the 21 through 31. So 11, Tennessee Titans, Will Levis here. This was the pick that I had a lot of question about because I have no idea. It sounds like the Titans do want a quarterback. I'm not sure which quarterback they want to go with, but Will Levis does seem like a nice fit for the Tennessee Titans, and you hope it works out. Because it sounds like you're moving on from Tannehill. Malik Willis appears not to be the answer. Quarterback they took last year, who many people said could have gone top 3 at one point. But, yeah, so we'll see what Will Levis does. There's a lot of discussion back and forth about Will Levis's game. So they have him taking Will Levis there. So I have Tennessee taking Will Levis based on, what I'm hearing. And number 12, Houston. So Houston, this is their second pick in the first round from the Watson trade. I have them taking Nolan Smith, edge rusher out of Georgia. You got to love the motor and the effort Nolan Smith plays with. He's a very good football player. A guy that's very strong for just 6'2", 240, and a guy that really has maybe a chance to play off-ball linebacker in the NFL. So Nolan Smith is the pick here for Houston. You got to double downing on just two guys that played in the SEC, and Will Anderson and Nolan Smith, and they're two relentless pass rushers. Number 13, the New York Jets have them taking Peter Skoronski, and the Jets they get themselves a stud offensive lineman here, and this is one of those where, if you're Jets fans, maybe you still have nightmares of Mekhi Becton. Peter Skoronski seems like he has a high floor and is just a darn good football player. And he will a guy that will find a way to really fit it. With the New York Jets. So really like this move here. You got Elijah Vera Tucker. If you choose to play Skoronski at tackle or at guard, I think it's a great move taking Peter Skoronski here at 13 and a good value pick, because a lot of people have him as the number one offensive lineman, regardless of interior or offensive, regardless of whether you have him as an interior guy or an offensive tackle. Number 14, I have New England Patriots. This was a tough one. I have them taking Christian Gonzalez, corner out of Oregon. Gonzalez is a good football player, very athletic corner. Really like his movement skills. Is a guy that I did have as my number one corner until I really took a deep dive into Devin Witherspoon. But New England, there's a lot of different directions they could go here. I feel like in this case, I have them taking the best player on the board in Christian Gonzalez. Bill Belichick, you never know what he's going to do. This is a team that took Cole Strange last year in the first round, which was kind of a head-scratcher by most, but he was pretty solid this year for the most part. So New England here does something they don't often do under Bill Belichick and take the best player on the board by most people thus far in the draft in taking Christian Gonzalez, the corner out of Oregon, former Colorado Buffalo. $15, I have the Green Bay Packers taking Dalton Kincaid. To me, this pick really makes a lot of sense, and I don't know if Green Bay is going to do it because I know they really have made an emphasis on drafting defense the last couple of years, and that's very apparent with Devontae Wyatt, Quay Walker last year. But this is a team that does have a need at the tight end position, and Dalton Kincaid is, it seems like, the consensus tight end in the draft. This is a guy that's just a phenomenal pass catcher, tremendous athlete, great story, a guy that started his career at San Diego, ended up transferring to Utah, and has just been a star the last couple of years for the Utah Utes. Guy that can win contested catches, a guy that is willing to block. He does not excel at it, but definitely will put an effort into it. So the Green Bay Packers taking Dalton Kincaid here at number 15. Number 16, Washington Commanders. This was where I was really tempted for them to have them take Kalijah Kancey, but I settled on. I say settled. I shouldn't use the term settled. I ended up going with Deonte Banks because Deonte Banks is a very good football player. This is a guy that has a skill set that you really like. Has had a really good career overall at Maryland, and a fluid mover like Gonzalez. There's really not a lot of weaknesses to this guy's game. Ran in the 4.3s at the combine. A guy with good ball skills, can play man coverage, has no problem in zone coverage, has no problem, with his speed turning and running receivers. So to me, Deonte Banks made the most sense. 17, I had the Pittsburgh Steelers taking Paris Johnson. Paris Johnson seems like a pick that it didn't seem like those two really meshed together, Pittsburgh and Paris Johnson, but I think this was a very good value pick, and it fills a need for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a team that, the offensive line just isn't as good as it used to be, and you had a guy like Paris Johnson, a guy that can play tackle and guard like Peter Skoronski and did it in college. So seems like Pittsburgh will find a home for this guy, and you got to love the movement skills Paris Johnson has. Wish he had a little better anchor, but this is a guy that I feel like you can get a little bit more out of him with coaching, and if you choose to play him at guard, he is a capable run blocker, and with his athleticism, he does do a really good job of working to stay in front of blockers and really shown the ability to stay on blocks. 18, I had the Detroit Lions taking Bijan Robinson, and this was a pick I don't know if I didn't necessarily want to make, but I kind of had to because Bijan Robinson. It's likely, like everyone says, that he's going to go earlier in this, but then everyone says that, but then everyone has trouble deciding on which team would take him. But bottom line, Bijan Robinson is a guy that has been an NFL running back playing in college the past few years. He looks like he's ready to, take over and dominate the NFL in the first week of the 2023 NFL season. So you had Montgomery, Bijan Robinson, two guys that have been that have lit up the break tackle stat line by Pro Football Focus. Montgomery was the single season. Did have the single season record for broken tackles in a season, and then only to be outdone by Bijan Robinson this past year. So you had two guys that know how to break tackles, know how to run with physicality, know how to move side to side and catch passes out the backfield. So Montgomery, Bijan Robinson is the combo in the pick for Detroit here at 18. At 19, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking Broderick Jones in the offensive line. Tampa Bay's offensive line was a little underwhelming last year. So you get a guy that, Broderick Jones, I'm not as high on, but I do think he's got a fairly high floor. This guy that really does look the part size-wise, played some very good football for Georgia last year, and this is a guy that, with his size and length, is just hard to get around. And I think this is a safe pick, but it's also a pick that really helps Tampa Bay, which is a team arguably that might be heading into a rebuild. But you have Tristan Wirfs there, who's an excellent player, so you pair him with Broderick Jones, and your offensive line's looking a little brighter heading into next year. 20, I had the Seattle Seahawks taking Will McDonald, edge rusher out of Iowa State. McDonald, to me, these are two really nice picks by Seattle. Jalen Carter, Will McDonald. This to me just screams that Seattle. With these two picks, this is a statement that Seattle is really building something on the offensive or in the defensive line. Draymond Jones. Draymond Jones, like I touched on in free agency, you draft Jalen Carter, then Will McDonald. This seems kind of unlikely. Will McDonald, like Bijan Robinson, going to 18 Detroit. It seems like Will McDonald might not be on the board this long because it seems like a lot of teams, it seems like he's a guy that just keeps moving up and getting pushed up mock drafts. But Will McDonald, the ability to, win in so many different ways as a pass rusher. He's got a really nice skill set, plays with a lot of power and strength for a guy that's not super big like Nolan Smith, and you got yourself a nice pick for Seattle here at 20. So I'll run through the other ones. I got 21, the Los Angeles Chargers taking Zay Flowers. To me, this seems like a great fit with Herbert. You get Herbert, a nice slot receiver who's tough, who knows how to get open. 22, Baltimore Ravens taking Quentin Johnston. This was more so just a very good value pick. Even though you could argue the Ravens still do need a receiver, even though they just signed Odell Beckham. But you had Quentin Johnston, a guy with size, length, a guy that's that moves fairly well for a guy that big, and you got yourself a guy that can win some tested catches. Pretty good compliment to Odell Beckham and Rashad Bateman. 23, Minnesota taking Kalijah Kancey out of Pitt. 24, Jacksonville Jaguars, Brian Branch out of Alabama. Branch appears to will likely be my number one safety. Very good football player. 25, the New York Giants taking Osiris Torrance, who arguably is the best guard in this draft. 26, Dallas Cowboys taking Mozzie Smith out of Michigan. 27, Buffalo Bills taking Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State. 28, Cincinnati Bengals taking Cam Smith, starting a little run on corner. 29, New Orleans, Brian Bresee, Clemson. I'll just touch on Bresee. Bresee's interesting. You feel like there's a little more meat on the bone with Brian Bresee. Guy that didn't play a lot of football at Clemson because he was injured a bit, but you feel like with technique, getting him to play with a little better leverage, you feel like you can get some more out of him, and he can really help the New Orleans Saints interior of their defensive line. 30, I have the Philadelphia Eagles taking Anton Harrison. Offensive line, obviously not huge on Philadelphia's list of needs, but Howie Roseman just loves building the trenches. You get a guy, Anton Harrison, a guy that most people have in mock drafts even going earlier than this. So get a good value here, and you continue to just stack what's already arguably the best unit in football in the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. 31, I have the Kansas City Chiefs taking Jalen Hyatt. To me, this makes a lot of sense. Kansas City, when you think Kansas City Chiefs, you think passing the ball, Mahomes, big plays, deep threats. That's what Jalen Hyatt is. He's not my favorite receiver, but this guy knows how to win vertically. He gets off the snap quickly and knows how to get behind corners and safeties. And to me, this is a guy will be a good complement for Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, some of the receivers the Chiefs already had, and just adding another legitimate weapon to the Kansas City Chiefs offense. So let's talk Las Vegas Raiders. So the Raiders have pick 7. The dream scenario for the Las Vegas Raiders is they get C.J. Stroud or Jalen Carter, in my opinion. Jalen Carter would be just what the doctor ordered for the Las Vegas Raiders. If you watch this team, this is a team that, Chandler Jones, Max Crosby, they were doing their thing, getting the rush on the outside, but the interior the interior rush was lacking so much that a lot of times quarterbacks could just step up, and Max Crosby and Chandler Jones just went right around them. This is a team that, defensive back obviously is a need, but to me, you get a guy like Jalen Carter, and all of a sudden, Max Crosby is getting home more because the quarterback can't step up in the pocket. Some of those run lanes are getting plugged, and you're getting more third, second, and long, and the defensive backs are starting to look a little better. And, the Raiders' defensive back, not terrible as a whole. Trayvon Merrick's a guy that's had flashes, former TCU Horned Frog. You bring in Marcus Epps, who's been solid from Philadelphia. You still have Nate Hobbs, who's been a pretty solid corner, a guy that can play nickel and on the outside. He's also a good tackler. They release Rock Ya-Sin, bring in David Long, Duke Shelby. So, corner, obviously, whether it's Gonzalez, Witherspoon there at 8, obviously is something that could be on their mind, but to me, the Raiders getting Jalen Carter, is one dream scenario. The other one, C.J. Stroud, the other one. Why I love C.J. Stroud to the Raiders is, this guy is the Raiders already have an offensive line where C.J. Stroud will have enough time to throw. So C.J. Stroud is a guy with time to throw, can make the right decision, pinpoint accuracy, whether it's downfield, over the middle. And Hunter Renfrow and Davante Adams seem like just great compliments for C.J. Stroud, because Stroud's already proven that he can find the slot receiver like Jackson Smith and Jigba, and he can find the guy like Davante Adams, Marvin Harrison, the deep threat down the field, a guy that can win contested catches, a guy that wins consistently on the outside. So to me, C.J. Stroud feels like a perfect fit for the Las Vegas Raiders and Josh McDaniels offense. So those are the two dream scenarios at pick 7 for the Las Vegas Raiders: Jalen Carter or C.J. Stroud. Also think, Brian Bresee, if he somehow slipped to the second round, that'd be a nice, because, Bresee's a guy that actually can rush the passer fairly well, and you'd love a guy that can just get a push in the interior of the defensive line, a big dude, a guy that was a former, top overall recruit out of high school, who just, like I touched on in my mock draft, a guy that's, you still believe's got some more meat on the bone as far as room to grow as a football player. Yeah, like I touched on the offensive line, Dylan Parham really looked good. They brought back Alec Bars at guard. Right tackle's been a little shaky. They threw out Thayer Mumford from Ohio State out there, who's a 7th-round pick. But Colton Miller's been really good at left tackle. So, the Raiders' offensive line, they could go offensive line at 7, and then at this, that would probably be my third option for the Las Vegas Raiders, is to go offensive line, because you had a guy like Paris Johnson, Darnell Wright. Darnell Wright maybe would probably be most ideal, because then you could play him. You could just plug him right in at that right tackle, which is a weakness for the Raiders, and you're good to go. But this is a Raiders team where it was. They were Derek Carr kept them competitive, but quarterback, an elite quarterback or an elite defensive lineman, like I've just harped on, Jalen Carter and C.J. Stroud would make a huge difference in this Las Vegas Raiders team. So I'm going to wrap with that. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Big Time Football Talk, guys. Stay tuned for more episodes and clips from the show. Till next time, peace.